Trust me, a lot of you have asked for part 2. Well, here it is. For real. In its entirety. There are going to be a total of 3 parts to this series, which means that this is number 2, and there's a 3rd part coming out. And I'm not going to be like Valve and just tease it. It's going to actually come out. Probably sooner than you think. Anyway, this is part 2. What we're going to be covering in this part is everything where I left off at the end of part 1, which if you haven't seen, I will link below. That was just starting to frame the walls. We're going to start with framing the walls and finishing that stuff, and moving all the way to getting windows in and beginning the drywall process. So I'll cover the cladding on the outside, I'll cover the cladding on the inside, windows, stuff like that. I'll be interjecting every once in a while with this camera if I find that there's something lacking in my timeline of events, or if there's any information that I've gained since this footage was shot 2 years ago. And yeah, it's gonna be vlog style. I've included chapters. If you're interested in anything specific, feel free to jump ahead. Not gonna bother me one bit because I'm not actually here. This is just my face. This is a recording from earlier. I'm probably actually working right now. This is just you're watching this now, and that's just not how time works. So feel free to do whatever you want. I'm not really here. This is just a virtual representation of me. I don't care what you do. I don't care. Cool. So let's jump into it. So here in this first part of the video, all we're doing is removing the rest of the screens that hadn't come down in the first video, and prepping everything so that we can start to put sheathing on the outside of the structure. And some people call it sheeting, some people call it sheathing. It's the same stuff. We're going to be using the Zip System, which is a green waterproof board, and it on the seams has a tape seal. So you put this cool tape called zip tape between the panels to waterproof it, and you roll it on with a zip roller, and it creates a chemical bond to the substrate with the I think it's called polybutylene, the stuff inside the tape that creates the chemical bond. But anyways, it's totally waterproof, and they use it on big residential tract house builds and larger like apartment complex builds. You'll see that Zip System stuff. Once you start to see it, you'll see it everywhere. But this is my first time working with it, so in this video you're not going to really see me putting the Zip System up on the side of the house, just because again this was my first time working with it and I didn't feel comfortable advising on like best practices for it. But next time I use it, I promise I'll put up some sort of a tutorial. You can also see me here struggling with the hole saw. Each one of these bays in the ceiling has to have a vent because we're going to be closing it in. So I'm using a regular clutch drill, trying to use a hole saw, and then I'm also using my corded drill to see if that would work any faster. I wasn't getting very good results for this, and I actually went out later and picked up a tool called a hole hog in order to do the rest of these. But yeah, you can see me kind of giving up on that method here. Guy in the background who is helping this part of the process is named Jimmy. I had 2 different guys help me out with this build other than Jason. Dylan, who we saw in the last video, and Jimmy, who is here. This is probably the last you'll see of the porch, as it looks like a porch. Hello everybody, it's your boy. We've got Jimmy here helping us out today.
Yes sir.
Let's see if I can pick your nose. He's going to be tearing down that wall behind me, and there's like siding on it and shit, and that's the wall that faces the living room. So we're going to be taking care of that today. At this point, all the framing is done, so all the walls and shit are in. I can turn the camera probably and show you that stuff. Let's see here. Yep, so walls are in on both sides, which is cool. Flooring's done. That was the last video. So last video was foundation, I think is what I called it. I think that's it.
You're done.
Yeah. Alright, well I'm gonna go to the store. You guys get to watch Jimmy blow this shit up. It should pop right off. In the process of trying to turn this porch into a room, what we ended up doing was taking all of the siding off of the back wall, and those windows came out as well. We were left with that door opening, which we framed in further so that it would be the required size for the door we ended up using as the studio door. Hot damn, he did it. Well, I'm gonna eat lunch. Let's everybody knock off for a bit. Yeah.
Hello. The room is now what we would call dried in, which means that all the sheathing is up on the exterior, as you can see. And today I'm doing the process of cutting the windows and applying tape to the zip system. Anything else to report? Nope. I don't think so. Oh, we had an accidental window removal. So there's the old windows from what used to be the living room wall. Those are now officially gone. Oops. They were going to go anyway, but you know they left sooner than I expected. That is my alarm telling me to get back to work, so I better do that. It's nice that I get to work under the fans now. Alright, where are my glasses? Wow, that's much easier to use than the other hole saw. I will give that credit where credit is due. Alright. This is one of my new favorite tools right here. Sick ass. Alright, sawzall, your turn, let's go. Oh, here's a joke. Hey everybody, why is it called a sawzall? Because it saws all. That's one. Fucking 4 more to go.
This is the new tool I was talking about. It's called a hole hog. So this tool was a bit hard to get the hang of, but for cutting about 40 of these holes into the bays in order to get proper venting into the underneath of the drywall, it was absolutely necessary in the long run. It has a stick that I ended up attaching to it that helped me to hang on to it when it was over my head like that. And these things have enough torque where they will absolutely break your arm if you're not careful. So make sure that you're aware of this tool's power before you start to use it carelessly.
Alright, one down, like way more than 20 to go.
And that is the last footage I have of this room before the drywall went up. And the reason for that is I got kind of scared about whether or not the idea that I had for the way to soundproof, in quotes there, this room was going to work. So I was like, well, if I don't know if it's going to work, I don't feel like filming it. So I pussed out. I'm sorry. I've recreated the way that these walls were built so that you can get an idea of how I managed to squeeze a lot of rock wool insulation and clad the 2x4 walls so that they would be pretty damn soundproof. It's not fully soundproof. You can still hear, like if the neighbor cranks up their mower, you kind of get the idea that the neighbor is mowing something out there, but it is pretty fucking quiet. Even Matt Davis's studio down in Florida, like you can hear the air conditioner of the neighbor when it cuts on. So even his studio isn't soundproof, and getting a room soundproof is next to impossible. So for what I was able to do with the tools at my disposal at that point in my building career, I'm very proud of it to this day. So here's an animation explaining what I did in terms of building the studio walls. So we were limited by the fact that we had to build these walls out of 2x4s due to the fact that the porch was framed with timbers and in 4x4 in American lumber standards. So what you see here is an animation showing you the different layers that I was able to cram into this wall. You can see this right here is what I would call a bay. So each one of the bays, i.e. areas between a stud, has two pieces of 16 on center, 48-inch tall pieces of rock wool in it, crammed into there from floor to ceiling. And then on top of that, there is a 5/8 layer of drywall. And then on top of that, there's a 1/2-inch layer of drywall. So it's rock wool, and then a 5/8 inch layer of drywall, and then a layer of drywall. Now, the layer of drywall that is the first layer and the layer of drywall that's the second layer, their seams are staggered and they're fully mudded. And I don't mean like fully taped and mudded. I mean that I put a shitload of heavy joint compound in all the joints on the first layer. And then when I hung the second layer, I staggered the seams so the seams wouldn't line up. And I also taped the shit and mudded the shit out of all those joints so that you get a nice, like airtight sort of seal between the exterior and interior of the home's envelope. The other thing you have helping soundproof this wall is the fact that on the outside of the wall is 2 layers as well. There is what's called hardy board, which is the siding material, and of course the 5/8 inch layer of zip. So on either side of this stud, you've got about an inch worth of material, and the hardy board, which is made out of concrete too. So that's sound reflective. It's caulked fully around all 4 sides. The zip system is sealed, it's waterproof. And then the stud cavity filled with mineral wool, and then 2 layers of drywall fully mudded on the other side. And all the joints were also caulked with a special acoustic caulking. I forgot to mention that before I mudded them. Sealed is the thing you're shooting for here. If air can't get through, sound can't get through. That's kind of the rule of thumb. So that's how I built the walls of the studio. This is not including any treatment that we hung on the wall after the walls were built. So I just wanted to make this animation for y'all. Hope this makes sense. If you have any questions about this, please leave me a comment below. I'll do my best to answer you. Let's continue on with the video. All right. Fucking shout out to George Sedaris for getting us back on the recording track. Here we are in the room. You might have noticed that it looks a bit different than the last time you saw me on camera, and the reason for that is I didn't record that shit. What we've got done in there, and you can hear that I've stepped into this room now, is the drywall. So we have 2 layers of drywall. We have 1 layer of an R30 rock wool insulation made by Johnson Manville. It is the same stuff that you could get if you were to buy rock wool Safe and Sound or Roxwool Safe and Sound. It's exactly the same product. It's just, not the same brand. Let me put this down and see if I can speak into the camera better. It's exactly the same stuff. It's just not the same brand. Shit, what else? Oh, also the walls are fucking clad. Jesus Christ. So let's just do a quick update. Where are we? Here's where we are. Drywall. We've got 2 layers of drywall. This is 5/8 thick drywall. We've got a 5/8 thick layer and a 1/2-inch layer on top of a 2x4 stud. And then on the outside of this fucking egg crate is zip system. Let's go take a look at that. I'll be right back, YouTube. So here's the outside of the building. I've used zip system. I didn't film putting this stuff or installing this stuff because it's new to me and I don't want to give recommendations or any sort of advice based on a system I've already used. So today what I'm going to be doing is getting up into here where I've cut out for the windows, and I'm going to be cutting from the outside in the fucking windows out. And the window guys are coming around 3 p.m. to install their windows, which is going to be awesome. So by the end of this day, by the end of this video, we will have the seams of the inside of the drywall caulked. We will have the big gaps in the drywall backfilled and mudded, and we'll have the windows installed. So that's the goal for today and for this video. Here's the front of the studio, and again, I'm going to be taking out this window here Things are actually looking pretty damn good. I haven't been to the site in a while, and the reason for that is I just had a baby. So I have 2 babies now. I have my first kid who was born a few years ago, 3 years ago to be exact. Then I have my brand new kid who was just born like 2 weeks ago and some change. So again, I'll be getting up there, cutting these windows out. We went with clerestory windows, keeping them high so that we could put treatment on the walls on the other side. So hopefully by the end of this video, again, we'll have some things kind of starting to line up and look like an actual fucking room and not just, you know, a cardboard box as it sort of appears now. Cool. That's cool. So what are these?
These are little plugs that we use to cover the holes from the drill bit.
Right, so like, okay.
The screws go into it, into the window, and then we cover the screws with the plugs.
Like here.
Yep.
You can't even see it. That's cool. That's really cool. Them doing this entire wall took less than 2 minutes. No joke, like I have it on film. It's less than 2 minutes of footage. Finally, I got the autofocus working. Pre-filling all these gaps and cracks around the room. Oh, by the way, the windows are done. Ta-da! Isn't that great? I still have to seal the windows so you can still hear some of the sounds from outside. So they're not totally sealed yet, which it's kind of irking me, but I'm gonna fill these gaps with foam. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting this pre-fill in. You know, gaps like this, and this happens because people aren't exactly the best at cutting drywall. My crew that I had help me install, you know, they're new to drywall, so we weren't you know, necessarily getting the joints and stuff 100%. But this is what I'm going to fill in with that pre-fill that I mixed up over here. Anybody can do pre-fill; it's not hard at all. It is just a thicker mix of drywall than you normally would use. I'm going with a 45-minute mud here, so it'll set up pretty quickly. So I actually need to shut the fuck up and start working. So what I'm gonna do is set the camera down right on one of my gloves. I'll give you guys a little tutorial on how to pre-fill. Get some on your knife. Get used to the knife a couple times. This stuff is thick, right? This is not a light sanding mud. This is not a feather coat. We are trying to squish this in there. We want it to harden up quickly. That's why we're using 45-minute mud. So this is just gooshing it into the joint as much as possible. I'm not trying to make it pretty. Just want it to sit flat so that when we come back with our tape, that we can have a nice flat surface to press against. That's all this is for. It's just going to help us keep the joint nice and flat to make these walls look clean. Yeah, starting to look pretty damn good if I say so myself. See over my shoulder here. There. That's about as good as that's going to get. I'm just going to strike it up like that. Again, we're not going for perfect. This is all going to get covered up. We are just pre-filling every joint we possibly can that is larger than the head of the screw. Okay. So that joint has been pre-filled. And there's a little bit of extra mud here. I'll just make it harder to put my tape on later. I'll go ahead and grab that. Good. Let's move on to all the rest of the joints. So that was the pre-fill process that I use when I do drywall. It's important to note that not all drywall companies will pre-fill, and I think it's important for acoustics. So if you don't ask the company to pre-fill or know what that is, make sure that you do ask if you're doing a studio. Pre-fill all the joints, all the corners, all the gaps to make sure that even before you put the tape on, right, it's going to help make the tape flat, and obviously you're going to get a better seam. So there are mechanical and productivity advantages for the company to do that practice, but there are also acoustic advantages to I call it fully mudding, but to pre-filling all the joints and gaps. So that's really all that you need to note here, and that's going to bring us to the end of vlog number 2. So vlog number 3 will be coming out sometime in the future. Not sure if it's going to be the near future, but probably sooner than it's taken me to get this one out. Again, sorry. If you have any questions about any of the content of this video, please leave me a comment below. I'll do my best to answer them. A lot of stuff was covered in this video. A little bit longer of a video than I anticipated this taking and being. That's it. That's it. You can stop watching now. Bye.